Okay, today on the show, I am joined by Mr. Tank Toland, who you may remember as part of the Dicks in the WWE back in 2005, 2006. Tank, how are you doing, man?
Doing excellent. I'm doing fantastic. Yeah, don't hold it against me that I was a dick. Wasn't my choice, wasn't my idea, but you roll with what you're given. So, yeah. But I'm doing fantastic, man. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
No problem, man. No problem at all. And look, you say like sorry for being a dick and whatever, but it's still a memorable tag team. I think that people remember from back in the day, back when they used to have actual tag teams. Now they just throw guys together.
For better or worse, yeah. It's funny because I always felt. I'm not sure I understand. Shut up, Siri. Um, Sorry, my watch was talking, interrupting. Rude. Um, but uh, but yeah, I mean, it's really funny because I feel like the WWE in particular has gone through its times of having some really good tag teams, and then they just kind of fall apart, and they're just like, screw it, we'll just do this other shit. And I always felt, when I first started in the business, I wasn't a tag team guy; I was mainly singles, and then when I went to OVW, Ohio Valley Wrestling, I was so fortunate enough to be put with Jim Cornette, who's possibly better in the industry to learn about tag team wrestling than Jim Cornette. I mean, an absolute genius, and he put me in a tag team, and that's where I really learned about the tag team psychology and just how important it is. And I always, even before I was in wrestling, of course, I always loved my singles matches, but I always loved tag team matches because it brought something different. And it always
Sure.
baffled me why Vince and the creative team wouldn't stick with having a really good tag team division because I always felt that it brought a different dynamic, just like the cruiserweights brought a different dynamic. The women's division brings a different dynamic. You have different categories of wrestlers, and they can of course branch off and be singles or do whatever. But at the same time, you have all these different storylines you can go with. You have different feels of matches, and I just felt that they were really doing the business a disservice, or at least their company, like they could get so much more out of what they're doing instead of just regurgitating some of the same shit, and you could make it a little bit more interesting. That's why one of the reasons when I was watching back before I even started wrestling, it was the WCW and WWF at the time. The wars were going on, and
Sure.
I was really gravitating a lot towards WCW at that time. As good as WWE was, I mean, it was fantastic. I mean, it was awesome to watch. So much you couldn't go wrong either program. But I just felt there was so much more going on with WCW because they really pushed the cruiserweights. I mean, they were really pushing like, the Ravens flock and the tag teams and all that other stuff going on, NWO, and I just felt there was so much more to it. It just felt like it was more diverse and more um, just better built. I felt at that time. I mean, you had your incredible stars, of course, in WWE. Coming up through, Stone Cold. I mean, Triple H doing Degeneration X, and of course Kane and Undertaker and all that great stuff. But I just felt that tag teams should always have a stronger hold in the WWE than what it usually has. That's just my opinion. As I rant.
Yeah, and I know. Yeah, and I know like what you're saying, and even this past weekend there was a big tag team match with the Usos, who I consider a very good tag team. But then you have Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn taking the belts off him, and those two guys have always been at loggerheads, and now they're a tag team again, but they don't really work as a tag team. But it's not just those two guys; it's happening across the board all the time.
Yeah, yeah, and those two guys are just they're great. I mean, I was working with them back in Ring of Honor before they were who
Yeah,
they were, and they're just fantastic, and they have good chemistry though, and it's funny because like when I was in Ring of Honor, I was watching some matches and some storytelling and just some incredible things. I was like, how are some of these people not already up in the WWE, because they could wrestle circles around half that roster. I mean, when I was in Ring of Honor, I was like, I mean, I had already been in WWE, but I was like, these guys, I mean, they're so good. I mean, technical, and I mean, you know, a lot of them. I mean, some of them, you know, some of the stories were a little just like a lot of spots and, you know, high spots and a lot of craziness, but the overall technical ability and the overall athleticism and storytelling and charisma of some of these people, I was just so surprised that they weren't already up, you know, in the WWE. You know, guys like Claudio Castagnoli, who you know finally got up there. Who was he when he was up there? Cesaro or Cesaro. Yeah, Cesaro. I mean, well, he was, you know, Claudio Castagnoli back in, and he was like either at the time teaming up with Chris Hero, who ended up being like Cassius Ohno, or they were going against each other. And some of the matches that I watched them put on, because I was fortunate enough to be part of like Chris Hero's little faction at the time, his stable, and Sweet and Sour Incorporated with Larry Sweeney. I'm not sure if you ever knew who he was, but he was phenomenal. Who would have been an awesome addition to the WWE. He was a great manager, and that's another thing that's kind of gone by the wayside that I feel like kind of always. I mean, I guess being an old school guy, really just loved that aspect of it, because it just once again brought another another dynamic to it, and you know, more, you know, kind of like, you know, Paul Heyman does a great job. You know, it's like I feel like that's another thing that, you know, you miss out on sometimes. Like there could be more of that, but anyway, point being is that, you know, I felt like Ring of Honor had a lot of fantastic you know, tag teams, and you know, you had the Briscoes and you had a lot of other great tag teams that I just felt like they could have already been up in the WWE making an impact. But
yeah, so I think what you're saying is the standard of wrestling is much better down there.
Yeah. I'm just turning up my volume here.
In terms of OVW yourself, how did it come about that you and Chad were put together, and how soon after you two guys were together did you get the news that you were going to be going up to SmackDown?
Well, Chad had been an indie worker that had been, you know, working hard. I'll give him credit. He really trained hard and worked hard and really made his way around the circuit, you know, showing up at all the house shows and whatever shows he could show up to, and trying to get, you know, noticed, and always smiling, always having a positive attitude. Eventually, you know, he, I guess he got, you know, looked at enough where Vince was like, who is this guy? He's always around smiling. Let's give him a contract, you know, type of situation. And you know, good on him. You know, he hustled and did what you had to do to make it in the business, however you can. And at the time I was already in OVW. I was already wrestling in a tag team called Adrenaline with my tag partner, Chris Cage. We were, you know, doing really well. You know, we were multiple time OVW Southern Tag Team Champions, and everything was going awesome. I was loving it. It was a good time. And then he got signed, and just purely because he's same height, same build. I was a little bit in better shape personally, I think, and a little bit better looking, but that's neither here nor there. No, I'm just kidding. But so they said, hey, look, these guys look very similar. Let's put them together. That's what the WWE developmental wanted to do at the time. And so Jim Cornette said, okay, well, let's have it be where Chad starts he's his cousin, and he's coming in, he's, you know, trying to drive a wedge between him, you know, Tank and Chris Cage, you know, because he's jealous and he wants to, you know, try to just get involved. And you know, it ended up being that eventually Jim said, okay, what's going to happen is that's, you know, you're going to eventually turn on your tag partner, Chris, and then you guys are gonna turn heel. You guys will be heels, and you'll be the Tolands. You'll be and that's what it will be. And sure enough, that's what happened. As soon as it happened, not long after, when I turned on Chris, is when I tore my bicep. I actually tore my bicep during one of the matches, and Stephanie McMahon just happened to come down like the week after I had torn my bicep, and I was like, well, I'm not getting surgery because I need to be here and show them what I can do. So the office was down. Tommy Dreamer was there at the time. He was I think he had taken over for Tom Pritchard as, being the head of developmental.
Yep.
And I put on a great match with the torn bicep, and Stephanie was like, we want to bring him up right now. And so I remember I was in the back getting a drink of water, and Tommy Dreamer came up to me and said, Tank, I got good news and I got bad news. Stephanie loves you. She wants to bring you up right now. But I had to tell her that you tore your bicep and you're going to have surgery. So, and I was just so crushed. But I mean, I knew I needed to get surgery, but in part of me was like, man, can I somehow get around this? So Stephanie came back and she talked to me and she said, Tank, you're doing a great job. I love what you're doing. I'm sorry to hear about your bicep. Just get fixed up. As soon as you get fixed up, we'll bring you right back. We'll bring you right up to TV and we'll get you rolling. And I said, that's great. Awesome. So that gave me some hope and some good feeling, at least that I wouldn't be released, because you get injured and all of a sudden you're like, shit, am I going to lose my job? So during that time, I got my surgery and we worked it into the whole storyline that Chris Cage attacked me backstage, which is really, I was making it up because I was a heel and I was like, oh, he did this and he did that to me. And look what he did to me. I was in a wheelchair and I had a neck brace on and I had my arm in a cast. And it was a whole thing. It was really fun because I got to cut some really great promos during that time since I couldn't work in the ring. During that time, we still worked with Chad being my tag team partner, but it was more and more that he's annoying me more and more, which was, part of the storyline, but also part of real life. It kind of crossed over. But yeah, and then eventually I healed up, was back in the ring. And during that time, they said, we want you guys to dye your hair bleach blonde. And so next thing I know, we dyed our hair bleach blonde and we're the Blonde Bombers. And we went on and we were tag champs a couple times before getting brought up to the main roster. I'd say it was probably about after I got out of the cast and was healed up, it was probably about I guess a couple months before they brought us up. So it wasn't too long. So it was and they said, okay, well, we're going to bring them up. And originally when they brought us up, they were going to put us with Simon Dean. If you remember Simon Dean, he was doing his whole, his get fit type of thing, he's doing that whole thing. And we were going to be like his henchman. So we were going to do that. And then that kind of changed when we were in the ring and we were taking some people out and I had to rip off my shirt. And that kind of changed things at that moment, because when Vince saw me rip off my shirt, that's when he said, okay, you guys look more like Chippendales. So that was a long-winded answer, rather.
Did he say that to you guys? Did he talk to you backstage and say, this is what we're going to do? Or did he give you any kind of guidance?
Oh, yeah, no. The way it started was they just said, okay, well, we're going to have you guys just run out at the end of tag matches, and whoever wins, whoever's in that ring, you guys are going to run out from the crowd and you're going to just take them out. You're going to lay them out. You guys will hit them with some big finish. And then just, people will be like, who are these guys coming out from the crowd? And that's kind of the way it was done. So we did that a few times over the course of, a few weeks. And one of the times we were laying people out, and I remember I we were coming out in like black tank tops, like white beaters, and like black slacks. And we came out, laid them out, and then one time I just went and I just ripped my shirt off and threw it, and being all fired up. And then when we got backstage, Vince looked at us and he's like, oh, "Man, I really liked the way you ripped off that shirt and you threw it and you looked all like masculine. And you had the black slacks on. You looked like a Chippendale." And I was like, "Okay." He's like, "I want you guys to come back next week dressed as Chippendales. I want to see what it look like. You guys come back, get Chippendale outfits, come back, and we'll see how it goes." I was like, "Oh, okay. I guess that's what we're doing." So sure enough, went to our seamstress, and I said, well, "Look, we need a couple outfits real quick. Make them Chippendales so that we could tear off our pants and cufflinks and bow tie and suspenders, blah blah blah." And came back next week, showed Vince. He's like, "I love it. You look great." And I was like, "Okay." And Stephanie's like, "Okay, well, I guess this is going to be your guys' gimmick." And I was like, "Yeah, I guess so." And wasn't exactly what I had in mind, but it was fine. I was just happy to be there. And Stephanie's like, "So we need you guys to think of a tag team name." And I was like, "Okay." And while we were thinking about it, we were coming up with some different names, and we ended up with coming up with the idea of the weapons of mass seduction. So, a little play on, words and stuff like that, So I thought that would be cool. Weapons of mass seduction. That's kind of sexy yet badass, And Stephanie was like, so when we told Stephanie, which just happened to be while all the guys were warming up and the writers were all out there, and I said, "So that's what we're thinking." She's like, "Oh, I love it." And out of the corner of my ear, I hear, and you might have heard this story before, I'm not sure, but he goes, I heard, we should call him the Swinging Richards, like Swinging Dicks, right? That's and it was Michael Hayes. Michael Hayes was, at the time one of the agents or writers or creative, whatever he was. And he's like, "Oh, I'm gonna go tell Vince that right now." And so he goes and I look at Stephanie. She's like, "Don't worry, I'll handle this." And so didn't hear anything until about 10 minutes before we're getting ready to go out. And she comes up to me. She's like, "Tank, I'm really sorry, but at first they wanted Stevie Richards, the swing. At first it was the Swinging Richards, but that was too much like Stevie Richards. And then it just went to the Swinging Dicks, but that was a little bit too much on the nose. And so you guys are going to be just the Dicks." And I was like, "All right, I guess we're going to be the Dicks." And the first immediate thing, I thought a couple of things. First was, oh, my mom's going to be so proud. Second was, but my mom's got a good sense of humor, so it's all good. But the second thing I thought was, all right, this is SmackDown, and right now they're trying to be family friendly. They're trying to go more the family friendly direction. And I was really concerned about that because I was like, here we are, we're going to be called the Dicks. And I know there's going to be a lot of double entendres and, all this other stuff going on. I knew what it was. I was like, this is not meant for SmackDown. This is a Raw cable television, not network television type of thing where you can get away with a hell of a lot more, And so sure enough, I was like, "Steph, can we at least spell it DIX?" And she's like, "Nah, you guys, and it's going to be the correct spelling." And I was like, "All right." She's like, "So it's going to be Chad Dick and you're going to be James Dick." And I was like, "All right, guess I'm going to be James Dick." And it wasn't John Dick, which is my real name, because there's already John Cena, John Bradshaw, and then. But my whole thing was, why couldn't you have called me Tank Dick? I just don't get it. Tank Dick would have at least been cool, like Tank Dick, But yeah, so it is what it is, and that's kind of how that all came about. I think I just answered probably 12 of your questions at once.
Yeah. Well, when you mentioned TV and writers and different people like that, how much of that was going on? Are we ever in a situation where things change last minute? Because people always say that about WWE, that's kind of disorganized in some fashion. Did that ever happen to you guys?
Oh yeah, I mean, we've had other things change. I mean, obviously that was like a real curveball thrown at us out of nowhere. But there was one time we were doing like I think it was like an 8-man tag match. It was like us, the Mexicools, Eminem, Eminem was part of it. They were on the outside though because they were the champs at the time. But it was Burchell and Paul Burchell and no, that was it was Heidenreich and Animal. Yeah, they're part of it, and then Burchell and I can't remember Steve. Can't remember his name off the top of my head. I'm sorry. Anyway, bottom line, it was an 8-man tag match with Eminem on the outside. And it was a whole thing. We had so much stuff going on because it's an 8-man tag match. A lot of stuff that was planned. And then we were about 5 minutes from going out, and Vince is like, "No, he doesn't want that. He wants to change everything." And I was just like, and so all of a sudden we're all like, "Oh shit, okay." I'm like, we're either being fucked with or tested, or he just really just doesn't like the ending, or all the above. Who knows? It's Vince. Who knows?
Yeah.
But yeah, so it is what it is. And but everybody came together, and we got our shit together, and we had a good time and put it together, and it was a good match. So, but yeah, that kind of stuff happens quite a bit. I mean, you could be in the ring and you think you have 5 minutes left, then all of a sudden you're going to commercial, you have 8 minutes left, or all of a sudden you think you have 5 and hey, take it home. Things can change from 1 minute to the other. It also depends on if it's a live show, how long is someone going to be out there talking? Because you get some guys out there, some of the big dogs who get on that microphone, and they just don't want to shut up. They're not going to just kind of keep on talking. And that's, then next thing you know, they're taking time away from some of the other segments. So it is what it is, though. I guess they're the ones that are putting the asses in the seats. What's that?
Do you regret not having a singles run there?
Absolutely. 100%. Totally excited that I got even the opportunity to be there. I always tell everybody, it's like I was sour about going up there and having it be the way it was as far as what my assignment was, who my partner was. I felt like I could have had a lot more success if circumstances were different. I feel like even if I was just a dick on my own, I could have had a lot more success. I think I could have spun it, roll with it, because my whole thing was I always wanted to be as with that character. I wanted to make it like if I had my choice, I would have had the time to do it because we got released sooner than I'd like to have. I would have liked to have made it like a Val Venus mixed with like a Ravishing Rick Rude, like those kinds of people, like a blend of that, but I would have had fun with that, even if it was a singles type of situation. But when you're in a tag team, it's, you work with what you got, and that's just the way it is. But yeah, I really wish that I could have had a singles run. And I feel like I could have really proved myself, because I feel like I didn't really get to show what abilities I had in ring, as well as the character and charisma that I could have shown. Because when I was in OVW, I mean, I really felt like I shined. I really felt like I was killing it and doing a good job. I think I got a lot of good reactions. I got a lot of good feedback always. And, but when you're up there, sometimes you get what you get, and that's all. You get what you get, you work with it. So, but yeah, that's, I saw who was up there, I guess a little while after I was out of the business. I thought, Jesus, that guy's got my role right now. It was, I think Neville. Neville was someone, he was short, but he was built, and he's very athletic. And, I was like, shit, I can do all that shit. He does all the flippy doos and acrobatics and all that shit. And I'm a power guy too, though. I was like, that was the thing. I always wanted to be a hybrid. I always wanted to be that guy that could do all the crazy flips and all that shit. But at the same time, I could pick a guy 300 pounds up over my head. I mean, those were the things that I was, I was proud of. But it was almost like I was either like squashed a little bit, like saying, hey, you can't do all that stuff for one reason or another. Because, well, you're the little guy. You're either going to be the flyer or you're going to be the giant killer who you're going to just cut people down, But I just really wish that I wish I almost could have stuck to my guns a little bit and been like, no, this is what I really believe in, what I need to do. And a couple of guys have done that, that they ended up winning. Like CM Punk, he stayed true to who he was, and it was awesome. And then, but then you get people who it doesn't work for, like Colt Cabana. Colt Cabana, if you know who he was, he came up and such a good worker. And I feel like, that's one of the careers that didn't get to go where it could have. Same with Chris Hero, Cassius Ohno. So much more could have been done with him. He was phenomenal. But hey, you work with what you got, and if you're lucky, eventually you get to have a little bit more of a say as far as what you get to do. But when you're a new guy like myself, pretty much it's like, yes, sir, I'm taking my orders and this is what I'm doing.
Yeah, we're going to talk about stuff that people have seen before now and heard before, but just people will probably be interested in hearing. Like,
Sure.
Did it start to fall apart for you guys with this whole Chad going for these stripping lessons? And if you want to kind of condense that story. Now, I had him on the podcast about a month ago, and
I'm sorry.
He gave me his version of events as well. So I'd like to hear from yourself.
No, absolutely. Not a problem. And I've told this story a bunch of times. And so for the people that have heard it, you'll hear it again. Maybe a little condensed, maybe not. Who knows? Depends on, you could already tell I talk a lot. But I will say that, Chad's version and my version are definitely has some differences, some inconsistencies. And I've said it before, I'll say it again. Before I tell any of this story, I had no bad blood towards Chad. I was very frustrated with him at the time for certain reasons. He, went to Stephanie and pitched some things that without telling me about it, which even though I was kind of running that show, I feel like I still would have at least said, hey, this is what I'm thinking of telling her, so we could at least be on the same page. Because she came to me, she says, oh, Chad was telling me everything about, what you guys were planning. I'm like, oh, is that right? Wow, okay. And that was, so, but, but like I said, no bad blood towards him now. We even have some appearances coming up together in the next couple months. And it's all good. But I think, it was a very hard time for him. He was new up there. There was a lot of, and he's a very emotional person, and things get to him pretty easy, I think. And he's also a lot younger than me. He was younger than me. Well, I don't know if a lot, but he was younger than me. And I think maybe just not as mature with his feelings and emotions and how to handle them. And I think he let things get to him a little bit more than he should. And he didn't necessarily handle things as good as he could have. But you live and you learn. And, I wish him nothing but the best. But anyway, to answer your question, things started falling apart like when we were up there. I mean, shoot, things were already falling apart before we were even up there as a team. In OVW, people, it was worked into the storyline how annoyed I was with Chad, because in real life I was annoyed with Chad for a lot of reasons. And I think it kind of made me look like a real dick, like a real life dick, like a jerk, but it was just, it was a frustration that I felt because I had been with an awesome tag partner. We were clicking. We were always, on the same page, and he was awesome. Love the guy. And then you go to someone else that you just don't gel with. Doesn't matter if you have the same look, you just don't gel with them because mentally You're not on the same page. And, I think, that frustration was very evident to people. And, so they wrote in the storyline. So it was already kind of a train that was coming off the tracks when you're going up there. And that's the last thing that you need when you're going up to the WWE, because if anything, you need a good, strong partner that A, has your back, and B, not that he didn't have my back, but like B, that you're just on the same page, and that you're going to be like, okay, this is what we're doing. We're doing this together, and we're gonna get us through the beginning of this, because when you're the new guy up there, it could be hell. I don't think it's necessarily the same as it was. A lot of it probably has to do with social media, because shit just didn't get out there as fast nowadays. Anything happens, people are afraid, especially with all the anti-bullying stuff nowadays. It's probably, a lot better locker room than when we were there. So not that I'm complaining, that's the business. That's how it had always been for years and years and years, but times change. So yeah, we were already kind of, shaky going into WWE, and he had went, and when we were given this assignment of being the Dicks and being Chippendales, he did that whole thing with going and finding this guy Yanni to go dance with him. And I just like I said, it was very strange to me that he wanted to go and dance with this guy from 8 o'clock at night until the wee hours of the morning the day before we have to go on tour. And when he showed me a videotape of them dancing, and he was like, I'm going to get feedback from the writers and the guys and see what they think. And I was like, Chad, whatever you do, don't let anyone see that tape. And I was like, please put it away. If you just do it for yourself, if anything, I said, because they will crush you if they see that. Just knowing the boys, just knowing that it's a crazy, crazy business. And he did not heed the warnings. And sure enough, we're over on tour. I forget what country we were in, but we're on tour. And sure enough, we're already being pranked, hazed, whatever, which is totally cool, because I expect that. You're on tour, you're a new guy, shit's going to happen. I roll with it. It's all good. I mean, I've played lots of sports in my life where I was a new guy, or been part of things where I'm a new guy. There's pranks. It is what it is. No big deal. But I remember after one of the matches, all of a sudden I saw a group of the guys all huddled together looking, and I was like, what are they looking at? And sure enough, they're looking at the camcorder, and they're seeing him dancing. And it went from one guy to the next bigger guy, to the next bigger guy, it went from Joey Mercury to like Randy Orton to like JBL to the Undertaker. They were passing it around. Then all of a sudden, and when it got to the Undertaker, it was just, the Undertaker was just like, looked at it. And I remember, I'll never forget. I remember he looked at it. He just stared at it. Then he just went, and I just thought to myself, holy shit, that's not good. That's not good. And sure enough, that night is when I got a call. Hey, Tank, come on down to the catering room, because we're at the hotel, private catering room. And I walk into the catering room, and Chad's already there. He'd already been drinking. And it was, it was a round table, and it was all like, some big names up there, it was like the JBL and Chris Benoit, and Orlando was up there at the time, and Animal was there, and of course the Undertaker was there, and there's a bunch of guys there, and there was only one seat open right next to Undertaker, and I knew what the deal was. I was like, I walk in, and they all look at me and they said, Tank, welcome to Wrestler's Court. And I was like, motherfucker, shit. I was like, I've only been here, I could almost count the hours that I've been up on the main roster, and I'm already in Wrestler's Court. And I'm like, shit. I was like, how does this happen? Because I'm sure you've heard the stories, and it's the last place you want to be.
Absolutely.
And there was one seat next to Undertaker. So I walked in and I tried to play it real cool. And I was like, hey, you mind if I sit here? And he's like, no, go ahead. I said, mind if I have a beer? No, go ahead. Because I wasn't really, I'm not really a drinker, but I knew if I didn't ask for one, they were going to start feeding them to me real quick and continuous. So I was like, if I play along and I ask for a beer, it'll help. So sat down and the first thing they said was, so Tank, if your tag partner wants to go and learn how to dance to become a better dancer for your guy's gimmick, why wouldn't you want to do that? And I thought to myself, holy shit, I am totally buried right now. I am thrown under the bus, buried. I'm screwed. And I just sat there and I said, well, how am I going to dig myself out of this? And I said, well, fuck it. I'm just going to be honest. Not that there's anything wrong with it, but I felt like it was gay to me. And that felt uncomfortable. And there's about 3 seconds of silence. And that 3 seconds felt like 3 minutes. And it just went like this. And they said, you're goddamn right, Chad, admit you're gay. And it was like a pack of wild dogs. Just all of a sudden, they all started yelling at him, woof, 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 attacking him. And I thought, first I thought, like, thank God, this heat's off me. Oh my God. And they all went on him, and then I kind of felt bad for him, but at the same time, I was like, he brought it on himself, because I told him not to show that to anyone. And he's like, I'm not gay. I swear I'm not gay. And they were on him till eventually he broke down and cried. And he's like, I swear I'm not gay. I'm not gay. And blah, 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 blah. And then, and they're like, wait, crying. You can't cry. There's no crying in wrestling. It's like that whole thing. And they're like, all right, calm down. Do some jumping jacks. So they had him doing jumping jacks and squats and squat thrusts while he's crying. And he's like sitting there crying, doing a workout. And I'm like, oh, Jesus. And so, that goes on for a little bit, and they're busting his chops. And I remember Orlando Jordan saying, Chad, if anyone knows gay, I know gay, and you're gay as hell. And he was just so upset. And Chad is very, very, very metrosexual. Does he come off as possibly gay or a little gay or bisexual? Yes. Does it matter? Who cares? I don't care. Who cares? Right? It's the 2000 whatevers. And it is what it is. But they really got on him hardcore. It was some good bullying going on, but it is what it is. But eventually it turned to, all right, well, let me ask you, Tank. We hear obviously that you guys don't get along very well. Why is that? I was like, look, it's just something that, we don't always click well. And it's frustrating sometimes when you're not getting along with your tag partner and you're not on the same page. He goes, and they're like, well, how come you guys haven't fought yet? I was like, and I think because they did hear that I did pull the car over on the middle of one of our drives and tried to pull him out of the car because I was so pissed off at him, tried to, fight him, which I shouldn't have, but it is what it is. I was very frustrated that's when he went and, was pitching things to the creative without, and Stephanie without telling me. So I'll never forget that, though. I was with Boogeyman and Bobby Lashley and Jillian Hall and a couple other people. We were in a minivan, and I was just so heated. And that's not like me either, but I had to be really heated to get to that point. But I guess the guys knew about it, and they said, well, how come you guys haven't fought yet? I was like, well, it just hasn't. I guess it just hasn't come to that. I'm trying to hold it together and trying to keep our tag team together because, we're just trying to be the best we can. And it's frustrating, but we're trying. He's like, yeah, but you're not answering the question. How come you haven't fought? And then Chad just chimes in. I don't know why. He finally had the heat off of him. And he goes, I'll tell you why. Because my mom told me to be a bigger man and walk away from a fight. And right there, and then I remember Bradshaw had like a napkin, and he throws it up in the air like it's a flag, like like there's a penalty on the play. And he goes, You can't bring your mom into this. Look at you. Now you're talking about your mom, bringing your mom in this. You really are a sissy, faggy, gay boy, and like that kind of stuff. Like just totally like laying into him again, and calling him a mama's boy, and all this other stuff, and pretty rough. And he should have just stayed quiet and kept his mouth shut. But he did that, and then they're like, "Well, Chad, you know what? We know Tank calls the shots, but don't you think you should be calling equal shots on this?" And you should stand up to Tank right now. Tank, you should stand up. Tell Tank that you're going to have an equal say on this, and you're gonna be calling the shots too. And so now they're riling him up, and he's had some drinks in him. He's not thinking clearly. Even when he's sober, he's not always thinking clearly, in my opinion. But I still love the guy. But anyway, so they get him to the point where they're like, "Come on, Chad, stand up and tell him." And I'm sitting in a chair, and he's like standing over me like this, and he's saying, "Tank, I'm telling you right now, I'm an equal part of this team, and I'm gonna be calling the shots too, and there's nothing you could do about it." And and like they're like, "Yeah, that's right, Chad." They're egging him on. They're like, "Yeah, Chad, give it to him. And I'm like, "Yeah, Chad, come on, hit him. You could do it. Hit him. Come on, lay him out. You know you want to." And like they're like, "You won't do it. You won't do it." And they're just getting at him. And so finally they're like, "Come on, fight." And so Chad's like, Chad, I know Chad didn't want to do it. And he's like wheeling back like this, and he's got his back to the boys. So the boys can't like really totally see him. They're kind of catching almost a side back view of him. And he's like this. And I see him like this. And I see him like basically say, just go with me, like work with this. And he winks. And I remember JBL sees him, and he's like, he sees him wink and like mouthing something to me. He's like, "Are you trying to plan a fake fight? Chad, are you really trying to work the boys? That's what we do for a living. You can't work the boys. You can't plan a fake fight. You can't." And like, so they're all like, now they're all just getting on about that. And I'm like, holy shit. So at this point, it's been, a couple hours of craziness going on. And so I'm like, finally like, all right, I'm going to go to the bathroom. If you guys don't mind. Of course, I have to ask permission like I'm back in third grade, because that's how it is. And I'm like, yeah, no problem. So I go to the bathroom. I'm doing my business. As I'm finishing up, Chad busts in the door, and he's like, Tank, you got to help me. Please, you got to help me. Please. I'm like, Chad, I don't know what to tell you. You dug yourself a hole. I told you don't show that video to anyone, and now you got us both in heat. We're both here trying to battle this out just to get out of here. I said, Chad, just keep your mouth shut. Just lay low, bro. And I was like, but you're gonna have to dig yourself out. So I walk out of the bathroom, and as I'm walking out of the bathroom, all the guys are walking in, almost all of them anyway. And as I'm walking out, and I'm right by the elevator, I'm like, okay, I'll wait here, and I'm hoping, because the elevator's right there, it's late enough. I'm like, hopefully they'll be like, all right, we're done, we're going back to bed. That's a night. So I'm waiting there, and then Chad comes busting out, and he once again he comes up to me. He's like, Tank, please. And at this point, and I shit you not, he got on his hands and knees, and he looked up at me, and he said, please let me hit you one time. And I said, Chad, you have got to be out of your damn mind if you think I'm going to let you hit me and me not hit you back. I said, because if I let you hit me, now all of a sudden I'm the bitch boy. I'm the one, I'm the big puss. And I'm not going to take that. It's like, I was like, you're going to have to figure out another way. He's like, please. And as he's continuing to beg me, I'm like, where are these guys? How long are they going to be in the bathroom? What are they doing in there? And sure enough, as I'm sure you've heard the story many times, or a couple times, sure enough, the Undertaker tells it like this. I remember he said, yeah, we were coming out of the bathroom and go to open the door, and little bastard locked us in. And they lost their shit. They thought it was the best thing ever. They thought it was absolutely hysterical. So this little motherfucker went from being so buried to being over. He was so over. They were loving him because he got one over on him. In the end, he got one over on him. If he had just left it right there, boom, it would have been probably end of a good night. Or they probably would have spun it and been pissed at him for something else anyway, whatever. But whatever. But at that moment, he was over. And the unfortunate thing is that he didn't lock them all in there. He didn't lock Orlando Jordan in there. And Orlando Jordan went to go to the bathroom, and he opened it, he noticed it was locked, so he just unlocked it. And next thing you know, as he walks in, everybody walks out. And when they walked out, they saw him down the ground begging me. And so he went from down low to over to just buried once again. And then that's when – I don't know how to respond. That's when they got over on. That's when they really got on him. And yeah. So, but they're like, okay, this is pathetic. It's the end of the night. So we're all on the elevator. Chad's now like crying inconsolably while we're on the elevator. And while we're on the elevator, they're like elbowing him, and he's like a pinball getting knocked around in there by the guys. And I felt so bad for him that when it came to his floor, I actually got off on his floor and I went back to his room because I was really concerned about his emotional well-being at that point, because I really felt like he just is so out of it that I was scared that for him to be alone. I just didn't want, I wanted him to have someone there to at least cry to, even though I was pissed at him and annoyed that whole thing happened. Overall, I still didn't want anything bad happening to him or him being by himself in that moment, because I saw how distraught he was. So I try to be like, look, dude, and I use that as a moment to be like, look, man, I know you are in a bad place right now, but use this as a learning moment so you can learn from this and know that we got to build together. We got to be strong together as a team, and we got to kind of get through this shit, because it's us against them, really, because we're the new guys. We're here taking segments away from these guys, or not those guys in particular, but like we're there. We could potentially take someone's, TV spot, and people in the business are very worried about, their positions sometimes. So, so basically when it came down to it, I was just trying to be there for him. And the next day he was sick as a dog. They didn't let him ride on the same bus as us. They made him take a taxi to the next venue. And while he's in that taxi, he puked all over it. And the taxi driver was all pissed off, and the boys, whoever paid for the taxi, had to pay extra. So now he was even in more heat because he freaking made him pay more for the taxi. So it was a whole thing. And then sure enough, that next day that we had to work, when you looked on the card in the back in the locker room and it said who was working who, it said, I think we were in Mexico City, and I don't know if we were working Spanky in London or the Mexicals or who we were working, but it said whoever we were working versus not the Dicks. It was versus a dick and a pussy. And yeah. So when we went out there and we were working, we were tagging, and every time I'd be working, I'd wrestle, I'd tag out, and as soon as Chad would go in, over the whole PA system, you would hear a baby crying. So you would actually hear the baby crying while he was working, and then I'd tag in, and the crying would cut off, and then I'd tag out, baby would start crying, and I knew the boys in the back were having a real riot with that. So that had to be like Undertaker or one of the top guys' idea, because only a couple guys have that kind of pull to say, this is what you're doing. So, it was a house show. It wasn't televised. So, but that's what was going on. I remember looking out the corner of my eye. I remember Ricky Steamboat was our agent for that match. And I just remember watching him just rolling laughing. He was just cracking up. And I remember the other guys on the other side were cracking up, and I was just like, oh my gosh, I was like, this isn't the last of it. And sure enough, it wasn't, because that very night was the grand finale. which, if you want me to tell you, I could tell you that real quick.
Absolutely.
Sorry, I'm like monopolizing all the time here. Okay, so real quick, that night I was really hoping that was just going to be able to go to sleep, and we had a flight the next morning, and I would just be able to get on the plane and push that away. But I got a call from Chris Benoit about 20 minutes after I had gone to bed. He's like, your boy's at it again. I'm like, what the hell's going on? He's like, yeah, I'll be up in a minute. I'm going to come get you. We're going to go down to the catering. I'm like, okay. So now we're in this really nice hotel in Mexico City. And we come, and it's a huge catering hall room. And now it's just not a few of the big boys there. It's like all the wrestlers, all the crew, the doctor was there, like everybody was there, everybody. And as I'm walking in, there's all these circular tables and everyone's eating and drinking. And there's like money, like piles of money on all the tables. And I'm like, what the hell's going on? And so once again, one seat at the main table for yours truly and next to Undertaker. And I'm like, here we go again. And so once again, I said, do you mind if I sit here? No, go ahead. All right. Mind if I have a beer? Here you go. All right. Thank you. They get into the whole thing again with Chad, and now they're just trying to straight up get him to fight me. And what I come to find out is all these piles of money are on the table around the whole catering place because everyone's taking bets. Are they going to fight? How long will the fight last? Who's going to win? Will someone get knocked out? Well, all these bets going on, right? So I'm like, holy shit. I'm like, are you kidding me right now that this whole thing's going on? So sure enough, I'm sitting there, and now I'm like, okay, I'm not going to put this over at all. I'm just going to relax, have a beer, and Chad can just run his mouth if he's gone. He's already drunk by this time. And so I'm having a beer. I'm sitting, leaning back in my chair, and Chad's over me again doing this whole pointing his fingers. And I'm like, all right, Chad, sit down. I'm not going to fight you. Stop. It's just, why are you doing this? We talked about this. At this point, I'm like, just basically saying, don't put them over. Don't put them over. You're giving them what they want. Just relax. I'm like, come on, man. I was like, just relax. Have a beer, relax. That was it. He's like, no, Tank, you listen to me. And now I'm like, you got to be kidding me, Chad. Come on. So I'm sitting there and I'm literally leaning back and it was Taker says something to me. And as I look at Taker, Chad just hits me square hits me in the jaw. I'm leaning back on two legs of a chair, just leaning back. And so I do a back roll out of the chair. Next thing I know, beer's flying out of my hand. Next thing I know, I'm in a front face lock. And I'm like, I go, damn it, Chad. I said, now I got to hit you. And so now it's like, so I get up, I get out of the front face lock, and I just give him a quick, I didn't even give him a closed fist. I just gave him a quick bam, smacked him good upside the face. I said, now knock it off, because I'm not going to lose my job because of you. I'm not going to give into this. I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to fight you. All right. I said, knock it off. And so because I slapped him like a bitch, everybody lost their shit and thought it was hilarious, because they're like, Chad, you cheap shot and motherfucker. You went and you hit Tank off the back of his chair, and then he gets right back up and slaps you like the bitch you are, basically saying that, right? And they're all laughing. And I remember JBL's on the other side of the Undertaker, and he's like, oh, Tank, oh, man, I got to toast you on that one, man. And I'm like, holy shit, just let this stop, please. And I'm like, hey, look, I'm like, Chad knocked the beer out of my hand. I'm sorry. And Taker goes, here, take my beer. And I'm like, oh shit. I'm like, okay, thank you, Mr. Taker. So I take the beer, and as I'm going to toast JBL, I'm going to toast him, and out of the corner of my eye, I see Chad wheeling back again, like he's about to sucker punch me again. And so I'm like, whoa. I'm like, whoa. And he's like, and I look at him, everyone's like, just, it's like almost quiet right now, because everyone's like, what the heck? And I was like, were you about to snake me? I was like, were you about to sucker punch me again? And he goes, psych. I was like, did he really just say psych? And everyone's like, psych, no bullshit. You were about to sneak him again. And I was like, oh my God, just let this go away. So I was like, I just shook my head. I was like, okay, I caught him. It ain't going to happen. I go lean over. I go and toast JBL. As I'm toasting JBL, wham! He gets me again. I stumble back a few steps, and I was like, all right, put down the beer. I was like, now I'm going to fucking kick your ass. And he just all of a sudden went into the best Ric Flair beg off. No. We're even. We're good. And I'm like, no, we're not good. And so I just like, now I'm just pissed. I'm fucking seeing red. So I just bop. And I hit him 3 times. First shot was like, hit him right in the eye. Second shot, I think I fractured his nose. And then the third shot, I came in and I put his teeth through his bottom lip and actually cut my finger wide open to the bone and tore a tendon. And he was, and I just like, I bop, and he was down on the ground snoring. And I jumped down to like, I was like, all of a sudden it's like, I'm just going to wail on him. But luckily the guys pulled me back and he was already a bloody mess. He had a white shirt on. I just remember just blood everywhere because he was already mouth and nose just bleeding. And, I feel bad that happened at this point in my life. And I wish I regret doing that. But in that moment, I'm defending myself and I'm saying, I'm just over this. You're going to learn a lesson one way or another. So they basically picked him up off the ground. And it was like, I think it was like Jamie Noble and Matt Hardy. Like, they're like, get this guy out of here, bring him back to his room. And they like drug him back off to his room. And then they're like, Tank, they all circled around me. They're like, Tank, you're one of the boys. We love you. You're all good with us, but your partner, he's an asshole. And I was like, well, that probably doesn't bode well for me either, because, you live and die sometimes by your tag team partner. So sure enough, I'm just like, I'm like, all right, well, thanks guys. And I look at my hand, it's busted wide open. And the doctor luckily was there, Dr. Rios. And he's like, yeah, I figured something like this would happen. So he's like, all right, guys, let me take a look at this, move out. And so they're still crowded around me. He looks at it, he's like, oh, yeah, you busted it open, you tore your ligament. He's like, hey, who wants to watch me sew together a ligament? And so they're like, oh, yeah, let's watch this. So, like, he performed hand surgery right there in front of the guys. He takes out, like, Novocaine. He jams it in my hand. And next thing you know, he flushes it out. Next thing you know, he's stitching it back up. And I'm like, there's my hand. And 2 weeks later, it was still infected. I almost lost my finger because of that, because teeth are have a lot of bacteria in them. And so, yeah, I got a good infection from that. I almost lost my finger. But yeah, so not long after that, I think we went to Japan. And then after that, not too long after that, we got let go. And because of, you can't be fighting. We're a publicly traded company and you can't be fighting and blah, 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 blah. And, yeah, it is what it is. It's Johnny Ace talking Johnny Ace words, and you wishing you the best in your future endeavors, blah, blah, blah.
Did he fire you over the phone or in person?
Oh no, it was a 3-way call. Chad was on wherever he was, and then I was on. It was a conference call, and he's like, "Oh, the gimmick's not exactly taken off the way it should," and nothing I hadn't already been worried about from the start, like I had told you. And then he's like, and you guys, you really can't be fighting each other. We're a publicly traded company or in another country. It just doesn't look good, but, just, gotta let you go for now. But this store, this business, it's a revolving door. You come and you go, maybe we forget about you guys, let the people forget about, the gimmick and who you were. And then, you guys, eventually you make your way back and you do something different, And, it's whatever, how true that was. I don't know. Johnny Ace. I don't think Johnny Ace truly ever liked me anyway. Even though I was more talented than that guy. Yeah, that's right, Johnny. I said it.
Did you ever get a call back, or was there ever any rumors of you coming back in any role?
Well, I actually really wanted to come back, and I was trying to get back. There were rumors that I was going to get a chance to come back when the ECW brand was coming back, but that never came to fruition. I actually tore my other bicep right around that time. So who knows if I would have gotten my shot or not. If Johnny Ace was still calling the shots, probably not. But it is what it is.
I had Rory McAllister on the podcast, and he goes, "That guy is just a piece of shit."
Yeah. Rory's a smart guy. No, I mean, hey, look, Johnny always would, give me a lot of mouth. He just say a lot of things. Oh, right now, we're still, because he's like, oh, we're going to give it this much time, and then we'll take a look at you, blah, 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 blah. And then that time would pass, and, I don't know if there's anything really, available for you right now. Bullshit. I had a look and an ability that I think most people in the business didn't have. I'm short. Yeah, I'm short, but I was built like a brick shit house. I was pound for pound just as strong as pretty much anyone up there. I mean, barring freaking Mark Henry. But and I could do a lot of the, flippy do and acrobatic shit, and had good psychology, and I was good on the mic, and I could have charisma. I think I had something that could have been really beneficial, and it was something different from just your other guys up there. So the only thing I didn't have was the height, but I think that goes to show that I did make it up there at my height and was able to make some waves a little bit, and it's that still a testament to, I think, my abilities. I'm not trying to put myself over, but I believe in myself and the abilities I had, and I just don't think that they were fully utilized. So it is what it is. You work with whatever they give you, like I said, and there's certain people that are in power at the time. The locker weighs a certain way it is when you're up there, and you have no control over certain things. All you can do is do the best you can with what you got, and I could have made some better choices and some better decisions. I felt when I was up there, it was really tough because the confidence kind of took a shot when you're up there, because you go from a place like OVW, which is, it couldn't be a better locker room. It couldn't be a better family environment with better instructors and people that you're working with. And, Jimmy and Paul Heyman was there and doing the show, and then Al Snow and Lance Storm. And I mean, like, so many people. Danny Davis was just amazing. So there's just so much positivity there. And to this day, they still feel like my family, and I love everybody there. But to go from that, where there was so much positive energy and feeling so good about things, to all of a sudden being pushed to that environment where it was a very cancerous type of environment. And a lot of people will tell you that at that time when we were up there. I don't know if some of the guys up there were just still so stuck in the old, old school way of thinking, or if they're worried about new people coming up and possibly taking their jobs, which, hey, or maybe a little bit of both. But hey, that's just the way it is.
I know we're kind of running over here, and I just have a couple of more questions. But when you look back on, say, the picture that WWE paints of a guy like The Undertaker and the things that you guys experienced there, do you respect him as much as the people outside that don't really maybe know the inner workings of the business and the stuff that went on back in that day? Like, did you respect him more, I suppose, from before you met him, maybe?
Well, a lot of, there's the expression, never meet your heroes. I have respect for The Undertaker. I always will. He was never directly a dick to me. He was always actually, hey, Tank, how are you? He didn't have to say shit to me. So he would always say hi to me, even though he was there, and he was kind of like, he's the judge, jury, executioner when you're in wrestler's court. And, but he's very much from the old school way. And he wants to test these new guys to see if they have the balls, the testicular fortitude, as they say. And some of the other guys, I don't not have respect for them I think that they were just products of their environment, and they're the way they were brought up, and they just thought this is what we do, this is the way we carry it on, and now it's our turn to be the ones that step up and do the hazing and and do all the pranking and bullshit. And and some people are sheep too. They're just sheep, and they're just following what they think they should do. And well, I want to look cool for this guy, I want to look cool for Taker, so I'm going to be like this. And I think that what they could have done is say, we're all in a professional workplace. This is entertainment, this is a professional organization. We're all trying to go out there and put asses in seats, make money. And if anything, what we should be doing is we should be brothers, and we should be all on the same page. And I think they were doing that to some extent, but I think that they felt that they needed to test the mettle of all the young bucks coming in. And for that, I say, okay, you want to test them, see if they're going to be able to fit with the vibe and the family. But at the same time, give it the understanding that it is still a business, and there should be some professional aspects of it as well. Not just we're on tour, we're going to have fun and fuck with whoever's here, so.
Yeah. You said that yourself and Chad are getting back for conventions and a few things. I was actually talking to him a couple of weeks back, and he was on about the same thing, kind of doing conventions. And what I said to him was that you guys, because of your history, are stronger together than you are apart at the moment, because of where people, I suppose, recognize you guys from. So with that being said, with everything that happened in WWE, if the opportunity came for you guys to go back there as a tag team, would you go?
Woo, that's, I've been asked a lot of questions. Haven't been asked that one. Good one, Maurice. Well, yeah, I think I would. Because for one thing, I love the business. I love entertaining. I love the physicality. I love the ability to be creative, and and I'd also like the chance to, if it arose. This is obviously hypothetical, but if it had ever arose, yeah, it would be absolutely great, because it's also there's new blood in there, there's new creative in there, there's new vibe, and it's just, I think it's just a totally different place to work now. And do I think I can roll with anybody? Sure. Let me knock off a little ring rust, but yeah, absolutely. I think it would be great, and I'm hoping that I would hope that if Chad was in position to go back ever, would he drive me crazy? Probably, absolutely. I think Chad's Chad, and it would. But I think I'd also try and be a little bit more tolerant, and I'm hoping that he would have learned a little bit and be able to kind of roll in the right way, So, but yeah, it would be awesome. I mean, just to be in front of that crowd again. I mean, I still love working shows, smaller shows, obviously, but it would definitely be. There's nothing like the feeling of getting out in front of all those people and know that you're out there entertaining. It's a phenomenal feeling, and I would absolutely say yes to that question.
Yeah. Just before we wrap up, then you were talking about appearances and stuff like that. Is there anything you can talk about that you guys coming up, or is this still kind of in the works at the moment?
No, we have. It's actually we have our appearance. I'll tell you right now. Our appearance is, the first one is on May 21st in Warminster, Maryland. Yep, Warminster, Maryland, and that's to do FK. What is it? Scott Wilder Promotions, SWP.
Oh, Scott Wilder.
Yes.
And when did Scott get in touch with you, as a matter of interest?
Gosh, I want to say like a month ago, maybe. Like maybe a month.
I may have put him up to that.
Yeah, I think I might have. I think your name popped up actually, and that was, so. Thank you, I appreciate it. So, I like getting out there in front of the fans, whether it's wrestling or doing, meet and greets or whatever. It's always awesome because the fans are by far the most important thing to me, because they let me do what I do. And that's just be able to go out there and have a good time and entertain people. So, Maurice, thank you for that little hookup.
No problem, man. So what I was going to say before I finished then was, God, I'm after losing my trail of thought because it's past midnight here. Yeah, we're just going to wrap it up here, and hopefully we'll get to talk again at some point, because I had like 6 or 7 more things we wanted to talk about, but we will do it another time.
Maurice, listen, anytime you want to have me on, it's my pleasure. I love talking about the business, no matter if it's WWE or OVW or any other aspect of it, the indies. It's great. So I appreciate you having me on. Thank you to anyone who is listening, anyone over in Ireland or in the States or anywhere you might be. I appreciate you very much. I thank you very much. Any promoters or podcast people or anyone else that want to get in touch with me, feel free to do so. Hit me up on Facebook or find me wherever you can find me. So yeah.
Thanks a million.
Thank you very much. Have a great night.
Cheers, man.